Hello and a very warm welcome to another edition of World Panorama. Like always, get ready to catch up on the biggest international news of the week. I'm Sana Khan. Before we get to detailed reports, here's a look at the top stories. Hopes are high in Geneva on Iran's nuclear issue. John Kerry reaches for talks, even as Israel says it's not bound by a deal between the West and Iran. Pakistani Taliban chief Hakimullah Mehsud killed in US drone strike. Pakistan says ties with America need to be reassessed. After India signed key pacts with Peru, Rajya Sabha TV talks exclusively with the Indian ambassador to Peru on the growing relationship between the two sides. And 1,000 days to go until the Rio 2016 Olympic Games. We get you a look at the brand new Olympic and Paralympic pictograms. The US Secretary of State John Kerry and other Western foreign ministers started converging on Geneva in a bid to narrow the differences between Iran and the West and help clinch a deal aimed at pausing both the Iranian nuclear program and Western sanctions. The arrival of Kerry, Britain's Foreign Secretary William Hague, and his French and German counterparts further boosted anticipation that a deal is within reach.
US Secretary of State John Kerry joined nuclear talks between major powers and Iran in Geneva on Friday in an attempt to nail down a long-elusive accord to start resolving a decade-old standoff over Tehran's atomic aims.
I want to emphasize there are still some very important issues on the table that are unresolved. It is important for those to be properly, thoroughly addressed. I want to emphasize there is not an agreement at this point in time, but the P5 is working hard, and I look forward to the meetings that I will be having very shortly with Lady Cathy Ashton and with my fellow ministers in the P5, and then also I will be meeting with Minister Zarif. We hope to try to narrow those differences, but I don't think anybody should mistake that there are some important gaps that have to be closed. So thank you very much.
It is the second round of negotiations since the Islamic Republic elected a moderate president who opened doors to a peaceful solution to the nuclear dispute. After the first day of meetings, both sides said progress had been made towards an initial agreement under which the Islamic State would curb some of its nuclear activities.
به هر حال ما وارد مرحله بسیار مشکل و بسیار حساس تدوین متنی شدیم، حالا به عنوان اعلامیه بیانیه که احتمالی هست که امروز به نتیجه برسه. البته ممکن هم هست که مذاکرات بیشتر طول بکشه و نیاز به وقت بیشتری برای برداشتن این گام ابتدایی باشه، ولی به هر حال با توجه به حساس شدن این مرحله از مذاکرات دیدیم که علاقه به حضور درش داره زیاد میشه. باید ببینیم که نتیجه چی میشه.
Il y a déjà des avancées, mais à l'heure où je m'exprime, rien n'est encore acquis. Je vous remercie.
The fact that a deal may finally be feasible after a decade of rhetorical feuding rather than genuine negotiations between Iran and the West highlighted a striking shift in the tone of Tehran's foreign policy since the election in June of Hassan Rouhani, a pragmatic former nuclear negotiator, as president. The negotiations in Geneva involved Iran and the permanent members of the UN Security Council, the United States, Russia, China, France, and Britain, plus Germany.
Pakistan accused the US of deliberately trying to sabotage its peace process with militants by carrying out the drone attack that killed Taliban chief Hakimullah Mehsud, saying it would review the entire gamut of bilateral ties and cooperation. Now, the timing of the drone attacks rather than their effects made the event rather sensational. Like Mehsud earlier as well, a number of high-profile TTP leaders have been taken out through drone attacks. Most of these commanders were killed when they showed inclination to enter into negotiations with Pakistan.
The fallout from drone strikes continues. In the latest drone strike, the US was successful in killing the top leader of Pakistani Taliban, Hakimullah Mehsud. Hakimullah Mehsud, who was believed to be in his mid-30s and was one of Pakistan's most wanted men, has been reported dead several times before. Soon after, US Secretary of State John Kerry defended the drone strike, saying that Washington was sensitive to any Pakistani concerns after Islamabad denounced the attack as a blow to peace talks.
जो गरीब लोगों को और गरीब ममालिक में उनके अपनी हिस्सियत को यरगमाल करते हैं और उनकी खुद मुख्तारी को पमाल करते हैं और लोगों को खर्च से लेते हैं, फिर उन लोगों से अपनी मुल्क की खिदमत लेते हैं.
Miffed by the US's unilateral action, Pakistan accused the US of deliberately trying to sabotage its peace process with militants, saying it would review the entire gamut of bilateral ties and cooperation.
The government of Pakistan has made its position clear that drone strikes constituted a violation of Pakistan's sovereignty, violative of international humanitarian laws, besides being counterproductive to our efforts for bringing peace and stability in Pakistan and the region.
The government denounced Mehsud's killing as a US bid to derail the talks and summoned the US ambassador.
We discussed at length today, but of course, this is a matter at the highest level. So, the entire perspective of Pak-US relations and cooperation is going to be reviewed.
But despite government's rhetoric, the incident may not likely to cause any significant degradation in Pak-US relations. Probably, there would be nothing beyond usual noises because there are not many rungs below the present status of Pak-US bilateral relations. America would also not take any radical pressuring measures like cut in the flow of economic aid because this may result in entrapping of NATO forces in Afghanistan far beyond 2014.
The proposed conference in Geneva to end the 32-month Syrian conflict has become an impossible mission. While the international community is seeking to bring Syrian opposition groups and the government on the negotiation table, the Syrian people are demanding President Bashar al-Assad's regime to step down. Recently, the word in diplomatic circles had been that the conference would be held on 23rd November, although the UN never confirmed this. Some powerful rebel groups have also made Syrian President's ouster a condition for their attendance in Geneva, a stance rejected by both Damascus and Moscow. The United States and Russia failed to agree on a date for a Syrian peace conference, remaining divided over what role Iran might play in talks to end the civil war and over who would represent Syria's opposition.
We were hoping that we would be in a position to announce a date today. Unfortunately, we are not. But we are still striving to see if we can have the conference before the end of the year.
Russia and US initially proposed Geneva 2 talks in May, but they have been delayed by wrangling over the time frame and attendance list, and differences have emerged between world powers.
You know, the opposition has a very, very difficult time. They are divided. It's no secret for anybody. And they are facing all sorts of problems, and they are working very, very hard to get ready.
Мы убедились уже не раз, и вот встреча с американцами 2 дня назад в Женеве это подтвердила, что национальная коалиция не может реально стать объединяющей группой для всех сирийских оппозиционеров.
Meanwhile, violence continued on the streets of Damascus, with the army and loyalist fighters capturing a strategic southern suburb. A car bomb killed at least 8 security personnel in a rare attack on a military intelligence headquarters in southern Syrian city of Suweda. Time for a short break. On the other side, catch an exclusive interview by the Indian ambassador to Peru, Mr. Manpreet Vohra, on the bilateral relations. I'll be back. Thanks for staying with us. Giving a boost to its ties with the fastest growing Latin American country, India signed 4 agreements with Peru recently, including one on defense cooperation and another on establishment of a joint commission. The 2 other agreements are an exchange program in the field of education and a letter of intent for cooperation in the field of culture. These agreements were signed at the end of Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari's 3-day visit to the Latin American country, Peru. In Lima, I had a chance to have a quick chat with the Indian ambassador, Mr. Manpreet Vohra, on the events and the way ahead for the 2 nations in terms of strengthening their bilateral cooperation. Hello and a very warm welcome to Rajya Sabha TV. With me is Indian Ambassador to Peru, Mr. Manpreet Vohra. It's a pleasure to be talking to you, sir. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you on this great effort, putting in this Festival of India together in Latin America. Congratulations to you.
Thank you very much.
I want to ask you first that this year Peru celebrates 50 years, Peru and India, of their relationship. First, tell us, what are the latest MOUs that have been signed? What are the areas that India and Peru are looking at in cooperation?
We've signed 4 agreements recently. We've signed the Defense Cooperation Agreement. We've signed a program on educational exchanges. We've signed a letter of intent in conservation of museums and helping each other protect cultural heritage and cultural property. And we have signed a memorandum of understanding on establishing a joint commission.
Okay. In terms, do you see a dramatic shift though there's no mention of, any pact signed on to expand the trade between the 2 nations, but would you say it has been significant, Indian and Peru trade, or how much scope do you see?
Well, I think it's extremely significant and the potential is huge. Trade between India and Peru has grown by 7 times in the last 5 years. In the first 6 months of this year, it has grown by 50%.
And what would you attribute that to?
I would attribute that to the ability of companies on both sides to find products to buy and sell from each other. And that has done extremely well, even in the absence of any trade pact.
Right. Also, tell our viewers a bit about the plans that you have, the work in progress, so to speak.
Well, we have a cultural exchange program which is work in progress. There is talk of the possibility of a free trade agreement. We have to see how we can take that forward. The joint commission that has just been established, that has huge promise because that would be a multi-sectoral joint commission headed by the foreign ministers on both sides. And within that joint commission, we would be trying to take forward ideas and proposals on science and technology, on culture, on economy, on political exchanges, on judicial exchanges. So there's a lot in store and a lot of promise that it holds.
Absolutely. So will we be seeing now more of India-Peru, travel by the foreign secretaries, by important dignitaries to both the countries? Because that has, we've seen in the past couple of years, the frequency has definitely increased.
Yes, and I'm sure that these new agreements will lead to even more visits, simply because if you want to implement these agreements, officials and senior people will have to travel to each other's country.
Right. Talking about the economy in Peru, because that's something where, there is a lot of potential, as you said. The World Bank classifies it as the upper middle income. And in fact, in 2011, Peru was judged as one of the fastest growing economies of Latin America. The Human Development Index, I was looking up, is something like 0.75. So it's doing very well, Peru?
Yes, Peru has done well. There is no question about it. It is still a developing country. But as your statistics or the World Bank statistics show, it has done quite well. There are of course challenges that any developing country always will have for a considerable period of time. There are challenges of inequality. Despite the high per capita income, there is inequality in this country. But I am sure there are government programs that are targeted towards removing that. The country is doing very well and the promise it holds, I think, is immense.
I was also reading up while doing my research that there are enough exports, obviously, that's a known fact, providing substantial revenue to the people of Peru. But you yourself pointed out the disparity is huge. So, what is being done to bridge that gap? Because disparity is something that we see even back home in India, and the social sector schemes are being implemented over there. On those lines, what's being done in Peru?
Well, they are doing exactly the same sort of things. They are doing special programs backed by the government, funded by the government, targeted towards the poorer sections or the more disadvantaged sections or the more underprivileged sections. For example, they have program on scholarships for the poor people. They have programs on girls' education. You know, they are on things like food, making sure that food materials and gas, etc., cooking fuel reaches the poor at an affordable price. So they do have targeted affirmative action programs, much like we are attempting.
In Peru's history, a lot has changed with different governments in power. You know, restrictions have been eased over the years. The economy is much more liberalized. Do you think a variable economic policy has proved to be a good thing, a boost for the economy in Peru?
I don't think that economic policies have changed too much over the
Not
years.
too much?
It has always been a pro-business.
But they have been liberalized over a period of time.
No, it has always been a very liberal economy. It has always been. What has helped Peru in the last decade plus is that the political situation has improved dramatically. Then another thing that has really helped Peru is the hunger worldwide for the kind of materials that it produces, its mineral wealth. The increase in the prices of minerals and metals, that has really helped this economy. But in terms of a liberal economic setup, it has always been there in Peru.
Okay. Let's come to a bit more generic topics and something which might just interest our viewers as well. The culture is vast. The kind of food that we've had in Peru, it's amazing. So perhaps more of exchange of that culture, because very rare to have I don't know if you can order Peruvian food, Latin American food, such authentic food in big hotels even back home.
No, I believe there is no Peruvian restaurant back in India. And I think that is perhaps an opportunity for some enterprising entrepreneur back home to open a Peruvian restaurant.
Right.
Peruvian cuisine, as you know, is now ranked among the top cuisines of the world. You have very nice Peruvian restaurants now in the top gastronomic destinations of the world, but not so far
and Indians
in
would
Indian
certainly
cities.
love the kind of taste.
I'm sure they would. And I suppose you should talk to the Peruvian ambassador in New Delhi to try and promote that.
Thank you so much, sir. It's been a pleasure talking
Thank
to you.
Thank you.
Much else has been unfolding around the world. Here's a quick wrap of the other international stories of the week.
Egyptian Foreign Minister Nabil Fahmy said on Friday that parliamentary elections would be held between February and March, to be followed by a presidential vote in early summer. The elections will replace the leaders appointed after the army ousted elected President Mohamed Morsi in July. The strongest typhoon in the world this year, and possibly the most powerful ever to hit land, battered the Philippines on Friday, forcing more than 1 million people to flee, cutting power lines and blowing apart houses. Haiyan, a Category 5 super typhoon, scoured the northern tip of Cebu province and headed west after lashing the central islands of Leyte and Samar with 275 km/h wind gusts and 5 to 6 meter waves. 3 people were killed and 7 injured. Pakistan's former military dictator Pervez Musharraf has been released from house arrest after he was granted bail in a series of court cases. He has been under house arrest since the May election, faced with murder trials over the assassination of former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto and Baloch tribal leader Nawab Akbar Bugti. He was also charged over allegations of illegally detaining judges during a crackdown on the judiciary in 2007. He was granted bail in all 3 of those cases. The operator of the crippled Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant, Tokyo Electric Power Company, said they expected the removal of fuel rods to go smoothly. With Japan's government having approved TEPCO's plan to remove the fuel rods last week, workers at the plant were preparing to extract thousands of nuclear fuel rods from the fuel pool of the number 4 reactor. Twitter Inc. stocks soared 92% in their first day of trading on Thursday on the New York Stock Exchange as investors snapped up shares in the microblogging site, pushing its market value to a heady $25 billion. The shares opened at $45.10 a share, up from the initial public offering price of $26 set on Wednesday, then added to those gains, hitting a high of $50.
Shifting gears, time to bring you up to speed with all the sports news that you might have missed through this week. Here's all the sports action.
Cricket fans expressed disappointment after Indian cricket legend Sachin Tendulkar was dismissed with 10 runs by West Indian off-spinner Shane Shillingford during his 199th and penultimate match in Kolkata City on Thursday. Fans were upset after Tendulkar's wicket at Eden Gardens Stadium during the opening match of the two-test series against the West Indies from November 6 to 10. Tendulkar's final test match, the second test which is scheduled from November 14 to 18, is expected to draw swarms of supporters and fans who will witness their hero's final performance. The Olympic Committee for the Rio 2016 Summer Games expanded on a timeless tradition on Thursday when it released logos for every single Olympic and Paralympic event to come. Traditionally, the Olympic Games feature a logo or pictogram for different sports or areas of competition, but the organizers of Rio 2016 took it a step further by creating a graphic for each individual event and competition in both the Olympic and Paralympic Games. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Jayalalitha formally declared open the World Chess Championship to be held in Chennai from November 9 to 28. India's defending world champion Vishwanathan Anand will play Norwegian challenger and world number 1 Magnus Carlsen over 12 matches. Anand is world number 8 while Carlsen is the highest rated player in history. Both players have been grandmasters since they were teenagers. With a stirring finish that epitomized his iron will, strength and ability to galvanize a tired horse, Tony McCoy, the most successful jump jock of all time, rode his 4,000th winner on November 7th. Champion jockey for the last 18 seasons, the 39-year-old Irishman broke into a broad smile after driving 6-4 favourite Mountain Tunes to a narrow victory at Towcester Racecourse in the English Shires. FIFA President Sepp Blatter called on the Iranian authorities to end a ban on women attending men's soccer matches. The ban on women attending matches has been in force since the Islamic Revolution of 1979. Blatter said he had discussed the matter with Iranian officials.
And time now for all the very latest news from the world of movies, music and lifestyle. Here's our entertainment wrap. Thor's hammer landed in Los Angeles on November 4th for the premiere of the second film in the superhero Thunder God franchise, Thor: The Dark World. The film sees the two divine brothers Thor and Loki reunite again, but this time they aren't fighting each other, but instead working together to save the 9 realms of Norse mythology from the Dark Elf. Florida-Georgia Line veteran Blake Shelton and newcomer Casey Musgraves were winners at the Country Music Association Awards, one of the industry's most coveted honors. Florida Line's love song Cruise beat out competition from Miranda Lambert, Tim McGraw, Darius Rucker and Musgraves for the Single of the Year. Shelton's 8th studio album, based on a true story, won Album of the Year, giving him 7 CMA awards in his career. Move over, Black Widow, and step aside, She-Hulk. Marvel Comics is introducing a new superhero, a 16-year-old Muslim-American girl named Kamala Khan, to reflect the growing diversity of its readers. The character, who will be the new Miss Marvel, lives with her Pakistani parents and a conservative brother in New Jersey. She'll make her debut in January and appear in a monthly series starting February 6th. Call of Duty Ghosts, the latest in the highly successful computer game series, was launched on 4th November with a party in London, as well as a series of midnight store openings. Over 300 game stores across the UK opened at midnight to serve customers eager for the latest in the 10-year series of the war-based gaming. The launch also marks the first of the launch titles for the upcoming next-gen consoles PS4 and Xbox One. The Call of Duty games boast of some staggering statistics. As an example, Activision claims 1900 years of gameplay are notched up in a single day by the millions of fans around the world. That's all we have for you in this edition of World Panorama. See you next week, same time, with more international news. Till then, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. This week, I closed the show with unique visuals of a 3-man crew that took the Olympic torch to the International Space Station on a Russian rocket, ready to send it on its first spacewalk in a showcase for the 2014 Winter Games in Sochi. This is me, Sana Khan, signing off.